Hello YouTubers, 2008 Ford Escape, and we'll be replacing tie rod on driver's side of this SUV. We just done the strut and sway bar bushing, so now we'll do the tie rod, outer tie rod. So before we start fighting the nuts, we spray everything with WD-40, so one nut on the bottom and the lock nut that connects the outer and inner tie rod. So next we'll get loose the lock nut, and it's 15/16. Usually need to apply quite a bit of force at the beginning just to get it a bit loose. You don't want to spin it too much if you are replacing just outer tie rod, since we want to put the new one at the same spot where the old one was. So as long as it's slightly loose, it should be good enough. If you need to remove the lock nut for some reason, just make sure that you count threads on the inner tie rod and put it back in the same place, or approximately the same place, since that will keep your alignment as close as possible. At this point we will remove 18mm nut at the bottom of the tie rod. Usually it won't spin inside, but if it does, there is a place for a wrench to hold the insert. So it's 18mm, and we'll just use a 1/2-inch impact. That's Milwaukee high torque, 1500 losing torque, what is a lot. A really nice tool to have. I will leave the link in the description. So now when the nut is removed, you have two options: either to hit it from the bottom if you don't need that tie rod, but in case when you need to save it, it won't work. There is a bottom piece has the place for a wrench to hold it if it spins together with your nut. So we won't hit it from the bottom, even though we don't need the tie rod to save. But if we hammer it from the side, a few good slams and it will pop up. So it just came out. So now it's loose. So next we will just spin it off. If it's coming loosely like this, it's all good, but if it's seized, rusted, make sure that you hold the inner rod with the 15mm wrench so you don't damage the boot on rack and pinion or rack and pinion in general. So we will get this off and we will install a new one. The new one is Moog. They are much heavier than the original ones, and also they have a grease nipple, which is really cool. And if you maintain those, you add some fresh grease from time to time, they will last forever. So this grease nipple, it is self-tapping, so as long as you just start it with your fingers and then use 7mm wrench to get it in place, you will be good. You don't need to tap a thread. So there is lock nut and cotter pin that comes together with this tire rod. So before we get this installed, we will put some anti-seize on a thread, and also I will leave a link in the description to this rod as the replacement part. So we'll just spin it all the way to the nut, as I mentioned before, in order to save the alignment as close as possible. And fun fact, after this job was done and we took it for alignment was not needed. It doesn't happen often, but apparently happens sometimes. So we will get this all the way in, and in order to put your nut on the bottom, you would need to press it in so the inner piece does not spin inside. The torque on that nut is just 35 foot-pounds. so just make sure do not over torque it. So I'm applying pressure from the top and now using impact just to get it a little bit tight. And now when this is done, we'll use torque wrench and we'll torque it to 35 foot-pounds. So now when it's torqued, we need just to get those grooves aligned with the hole to install the Cotter pin. You don't want to lose your knot, you just make it a little bit tighter until the hole aligns and you can install the Cotter pin. So now I'll get my Cotter pin, put it in, and then bend one side so it doesn't come out. Some tie rods would come with the nylon lock nuts, so you won't have a Cotter pin, but this one does. So now we need to get our lock nut tight, and we are using 15 mil on the inner tie rod to prevent it from spinning. That nut 15/16 wrench fits really well, and it's a bit tight, so it can be difficult to get it on in some places, but I'd rather have it too tight than too loose. So get that tight to make sure that it won't loosen up on the road, and don't put any stress on the thread. So as you can see, it's hard to get the 15/16 range, but if you're in the right spot, you will get it. So last thing is to add some grease to the tie rod. So it usually would take around, depends on the gun, like 5 manual pumps, and as soon as you can see that that rubber boot starts to expand, don't put any more. Those joints are quite sealed, so with the next service you might want to put like a half a pump, maybe 1 pump of the grease the most, but don't overfill it, don't put too much stress on the boot. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, check our links and do it yourself.